Welcome to Bold Talk series, where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and I have today the privilege to have a short one conversation with Jaime Punishill, Visionary Chief Product Officer at Lytho. Jaime, great seeing you. Welcome to our Bold Talk series. Haven't seen each other for a long time. How are you, my friend?
You know what? I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I love our chats and love what you guys are working on. And I'm having a lot of fun in my new role. So
Yeah.
things are good.
Yeah, I mean, we know each other from the days when you were with the Lion Bridge. Now you're the Chief Product Officer of Lytho, and it would be nice really to go into the deep in terms of the work that you're doing. You've been described as the change agent with a rare ability to balance bold ideas and practical execution. How did this mindset first take shape early in your career, and what experiences taught you how to lead transformation from within large organizations?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Some of it's accidental. I think some of it is just kind of the way I think, and then it's how that then translated into the work I did. So let's start with, I was a history and political science major. I did code as a kid, so I'm 54, so I think I'm like an old digital native. I'm one of the older digital natives, even though, when I graduated in the Valley, it was still the hardware Valley. And so, I happen to be a young guy when the internet came rolling through, and I was working at Bank of America. And so I got tapped at 25 to basically lead the project to build the first online brokerage for Bank of America in the mid 90s now, right? Schwab hasn't gone online yet. This was really, really early days. And so, that was I've always had sort of a mind for, I think it comes from the history of the political science, sort of, doing deep research, connecting signals and seeing a bigger picture, creating a narrative, creating a hypothesis, defending it, et cetera. And so that's that, to the extent that I have vision or, can put that story together, I think that comes from there. But because I was at this place where, and it's a little like AI now, a 25-year-old was actually the best person because they were native to the web and everybody above me had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I got access to senior leaders and exposure and responsibility that in some ways I had no business getting. Also I learned an awful lot really quickly about how do you take these new ideas? What are the challenges in large organizations with getting them through in terms of funding, et cetera, et cetera. And so very early I was connecting of seeing new things and doing change management transformation. I didn't know that's what it was. I was like, oh, well, everybody's going to use the internet. Isn't that obvious? That didn't feel like a change to me. That just felt like logic. Obviously, 30 years later, I can see the enormity of the change. But at 25, it didn't look like that. And so I've had, more visionary strategic roles. I was a Forrester analyst for a while and a consultant. But ultimately, I like to build stuff. And so I really spent the first 20 years of my career in, let's call it, building digital products, digitization, digital transformation. Then I ended up in marketing, and I was a senior marketing guy for 12 years. Now I'm a product guy for a marketing product. So I'm building for myself or for my old self, right? So I think it's, not everybody can see around corners and put those things together. I happen to be able to do it. And not everybody who sees that then knows how to make decisions and build. I kind of got forced into it because I always wanted the new stuff to come to life. And look, I've made every mistake there is to make, right? If I'm good, it's because I failed a lot, but I learned and got better.
Yeah, that's the way to go. You got to, go fail fast and pick up yourself and go in and keep doing it until you see it right. And you spend your career finding these blue ocean strategies in industries often defined by either regulation and tradition. What's your process for spotting those open waters before others see the tide turning?
It's funny you should ask that question. I once had a manager of mine. So let me start. I consume an awful lot of information, probably more than most people, and maybe even more than is healthy. I mean, you can see the stack of books. I listen to audio, podcasts and audiobooks, and I read all kinds of things, and often things that don't seem to make any logical sense given what I'm doing or focusing on. And I actually think that's important, that you find inspiration and ideas from all kinds of orthogonal places. And I seem to have a mind, and it is where it's hard to explain, when you can do something, you don't know how to explain how you do it. You just know how to do it, and I can't explain it. And so, but I had a manager who said to me, "Why do you read all that stuff? Like, it doesn't even, like, you have a new job. Why are you still reading that stuff that was more relevant for your old job?" And I said to her, I said, "Karen, I can't explain this to you, but I know the moments. I have them all the time. I'm in a meeting and I remember something I read 6 years ago on some other subject that is suddenly relevant.
Amazing.
I couldn't tell you it was in my brain. I couldn't tell you it was valuable, but at some point it starts to string together. And look, I think there are some people who can do that. Not everybody can do that, and it's neither good nor bad. I figured out I could do that. So
Yeah.
I've gravitated towards those things, and I like that new stuff and the building and the changing. So then I just had to figure out, okay, how do you survive? If you want to be Cassandra, or you want to be, the first guy through the forest, well, better learn how to build armor.
Yeah.
And, all kinds of other things, because that is a climb up the top of Everest every single time.
Yeah. Now, Jamie, working with all these different companies, with the large teams, and going through this digital transformation, what have you learned about this human behavior in those moments, and how people react to change, and what truly helps them adopt?
Yeah. So, I think it's interesting. I like to describe myself as a Gen X with a Gen Y career, right? I think this is the 15th or 16th corporate entity I've worked for in 30 whatever years. And, I've had 3 really long runs that really take like half of my career. So then I've had all these short ones. And on some level, that can look like not a great thing, but I've seen so many different environments. I've had big teams and small teams. At that Bank of America job, like, one, I was individual contributor, even though I was kind of leading the project, but I was really influencing. And even now I have 2 product managers working for me. Like, I'll build that team up, but it's never going to be 100. It'll be 5, 6. So I don't think it's so much about a big or small thing, although the dynamics change. I think the thing to remember about change is humans as a species are really good at it, but as individuals, we're actually quite resistant. We like patterns and predictability. We learn how to do things and then we want to repeat them. In design, there's this concept of learned helplessness, which is, as difficult as something is, you figure out how to jerry rig it. And then I come along with this beautiful solution and you're like, but you're going to make me learn something new. And I figured out how to do it, even if it's really painful. You see this in software design all the time. You release something new, like, look at this, is great. It's so much easier. You don't have to do all those clicks, et cetera. And they're like, I don't know how to do this. Can I just go back to the old way? And I think that's an instructive story, because when you're asking people to change, recognize it's very difficult, because it's often, there's a great quote. I think it's Upton Sinclair. I might be wrong, but I think it's Upton Sinclair. And he basically says, you can't expect somebody to see that which they are paid not to see, which really was, lots of people have a vested interest in the old way, the old behavior. More often than not, they're like, hey, the company's doing fine. Why do we have to change?
Yeah.
And there's an art to being successful at that. And I've gotten it right a lot. I've gotten it wrong too. You have to have the conditions, and you got to have air cover, and you really have to survive. I mean, it's as much survival as anything else.
Yeah. And obviously you said it, like, vested interest, some organization, for example, I was talking to an executive at this European company. So, like, we have a problem of retaining wrong people for a long time because of the unions and so many other things. So it becomes really complicated, and that really
Yes,
stops innovation. And sometimes we think like innovations, like, often just demands risk, but there's also this vested interest. But within large enterprises, risk can be also viewed as a threat too, right? So, what's your strategy?
100%.
What's your strategy for convincing organizations to take smart, calculated risks that lead to a real growth?
So I think you've got to, you have to find a language and a KPI and a motivation that speaks to that organization. And it's different everywhere. So one of my favorite examples about this is when I was at Citibank. I had a couple of different jobs at Citibank, but my last job there was as head of digital innovation for Citibank North America. And this is 2009. And that meant that I was helping the organization figure out social media, like literally helped write the policy. I was one of only a few people who could go through. It was actually my face on the very first Citibank Twitter account because the lawyers didn't want the brand and the logo up there because that was risk. So they put my ugly mug up on that thing. And early mobile, because like iPhone's only 2 years old at that point, no iPad. And so I was sitting at the cutting edge of this stuff. And for Citibank, at the time anyway, one of the largest line items on the P&L was customer service costs, right? 200 million credit card holders across the globe. And so as we were developing the social strategy, the first place I went was social customer service. It wasn't that it was necessarily the best application of social channels. It wasn't the sexiest. It wasn't the most innovative. It wasn't even necessarily what I thought would ultimately have the greatest impact. But what it did is it spoke to a prominent P&L that if we could impact it with clear, and we could improve NPS, improve first call or first, interaction resolution. And in that case, we also already had a team that was doing chat and email. So I even had infrastructure that I could leverage. I had a team trained close enough to what we would need in social customer service that what I had was the conditions for success in terms of staffing and talent. And I had KPIs and financial impact that I could make a dent into really quickly. And that would create momentum to fund more thinking and social initiatives, et cetera. And then we could start trying some of the innovative marketing stuff or social commerce stuff or other things. I wouldn't have made that same decision, I guess, as part of the point, at a different company where that customer service cost and that ops cost was so prominent.
Yeah.
Because that was what was going to move the dial for me. If at a different place, there'd be a different dial mover. So it's a hard answer because it is so environmental and contextual, but that's what you've got to figure out, right? What is because there's either a fear and there's a cost avoidance, there's a new revenue generation.
Yeah.
Right. Although new revenue generation can be quite challenging if it means affecting old revenue generation. Right. Mm-hmm. Certainly old pricing models. That's the innovator's dilemma. Right. So you got to pick and choose your moments carefully.
100%. Now, Jaime, technology is moving very fast. There's no conversation that AI is not part of it. With AI reshaping creative marketing operations, what excites you about how AI can amplify human creativity rather than replace it, perhaps?
That's a good question. One, I think that, yeah, you're right. AI is everywhere and almost my wife literally comes home every day. I mention the word AI and she's like, can we all just stop talking about AI? And it's not that she doesn't like AI, just like it's now everybody's found a way to talk about it. I think that so take copywriting as a good example, right? The truth is there's a lot of really bad writing out there in the world, just like there's a lot of really bad drivers, even though 70% of people believe they're above average drivers. And
is that right? 70% of people think
they think they're above average. So obviously that math doesn't make sense, but that's how people believe, right? What people believe, right? Like the whole argument over full self-driving and does it have accidents and make bad decisions? Sure. But actually so do humans. Right. In the early days, people told me, oh, you could never do anything like with bank statements or secure stuff in email because email's not secure. I said, you mean like the mailbox that's unlocked at the end of the driveway that nobody's looking at all day that you mailed a credit card statement to? So we create these weird frames of reference, like the human version is perfect and the technological version is flawed, except that the human version is highly imperfect. And so what excites me is it raises the bar. It raises really the minimum quality standard. Okay. Now, the problem is that there's a lot of people who have jobs delivering below minimum quality today. Their jobs are going to be challenged. There's no doubt about it. What AI isn't going to do is to take out the best creative writer at the top. So AI could, if you gave it 20 Dostoevsky novels, it could write you another one, but it can never write the first. Right. And so I look at it as there's so much mundane work and really misapplication of human talent against, take a sales brochure. Can somebody please update this with the latest statistics? Do I really need a human to do that? That's a low value. It's got something that's got to be done. It's automatable. And so that I think is the the opportunity. I do worry though, right? There's a portion of the population as we move more and more towards sort of that knowledge, skill, creativity, et cetera. There's a large portion of the population that that's not their skill set. But you know, the AI, like every technology, is coming. It feels to me like it. I feel for the first time in a long time, like it's back in 1996, and I'm playing with the internet,
Exactly.
and we're in those early days, and we know it's going to be big, but we don't quite know how. And I said this. This is I'm curious your thoughts on this, but I said this to a colleague. I said it's been for the first time. I feel like having almost 35 years of experience actually is a detriment because I'm seeing as I'm hands-on keyboard with the AI, how much I have to unlearn,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we're at one of those, this is the big transformative moment, like the internet, like the PC and other stuff before it, where if you don't recognize that you have old modalities and frameworks, this thing's going to hit you upside the head really
Oh,
hard.
big time. Big time. Very well said. Jamie, it's great seeing you, man. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Always love to get the perspective from all of my guests in this bold talks, and that's about the word bold. What does that mean to you personally?
So, boy, it's interesting. I mean, to me, bold is just is the willingness to, so many people can see. I mean, how many people say, oh, I thought of that invention, or I said that 6 months ago, or whatever. Well, great.
Versus like, versus on it.
Versus I've done it, right? And that takes chutzpah. It takes, failing and being wrong and taking risk. So to me, bold is trusting yourself enough to take the risk, you know, maneuver through the consequences and the setbacks and, seeing what you want or what's possible and driving towards it
Yeah.
and not, saying, oh, I wish, but I wish. I guess there's action. It's action against,
Yeah. No, this is true, and I truly get a lot of different perspective, and one of the most common perspective is that you just do it. Don't don't just live by this. It was my idea. I wish I've done that, and so on. So just hop on it and do it. Believe on it. Go forward, and that's it. Jamie, looking forward to reconnect again soon with you. Until next time, take care, be great, and be bold always. Bye bye, my friend.
same to you. Thank you.
Cheers.